Hi, this is Ron with Mobile Fix Automotive again, hoping to help you out with another video. What we're working on today is a 2002 Ford Focus ZTW. This is actually the wagon form of the Focus. It does have a 2-liter dual overhead cam 4-cylinder in it. The customer complaint on this vehicle right now is that it's misfiring. And actually what it is the engine is transferring harmonic vibration, which is perfectly normal to all engines. It's transferring that vibration from the engine to the frame, and they're feeling it inside the car. So when the car is at idle, they're feeling the engine shake. And I'm going to show you what to look for. There's 2 motor mounts on this car. One of them is right here on the forward side of the engine. Okay, this mount has already been changed, but you want to look and see if this mount's been collapsed. It's a little tricky and a little difficult to see whether or not this mount is collapsed or not. If you feel that that mount is not functioning properly, it takes just a couple of minutes to change it, so it's a good idea to just go ahead and swap it out. The engineers in their infinite wisdom, once again, from this design. Unfortunately, I can't blame this on Ford, because this is actually a same problem that we come across on PT Cruiser and a couple of others. But here's what where the difficulty lies. The engine and transmission in this car, and by the way, this is an automatic transmission that's in this vehicle. The engine and transmission are literally hanging in the entire vehicle, supported by 2 mounts. The forward mount on the front of the engine that we just showed you, and a rear transaxle or transmission mount that is mounted underneath the airbox. Okay, and to save time for you folks, like I said, if you're competent enough to do this, then some of these simple things that I took off already shouldn't be an issue. But what we're going to be looking for is, this is the new transmission mount. And if you notice right here, sorry, I got to do this with holding the camera and the mount. This piece right here on the top that I'm touching with my finger, move that out of the way. This piece right here is actually a piece of steel. This is the mount portion that's going to mount to the transmission. The stud from the transmission comes up through this hole and is secured to the mount up here with a 21 millimeter socket size bolt. And the base, the other 4 holes that you see, actually bolt to the frame of the car, which you'll see in a minute. And what you ideally want to see is, you want to see this space right here. Because the transmission, if I can try to explain this so that you can understand it, the transmission is bolted to this piece up here, and then this piece down here is mounted on the frame, and the rubber cushion in here in the middle is actually what absorbs the vibration and the harmonic vibration from the engine. And so if this piece touches this piece anywhere, you're going to feel a vibration in the car when the engine is at idle, and in some cases when you're driving. Okay, now I can't show this to you underneath because there's just no way for you to be able to see with the camera far enough up in there, but this is the bottom side of the mount. There is a big square piece of aluminum that's on the top of the transmission that goes up and fits in here, and then it bolts in, so the mount actually sits in this direction once again. But if you look from underneath the car up inside of here, you'll see that right here the rubber is completely worn off and the metal is exposed, and that is a prime indication that the mount has failed and you are transferring metal to metal vibration. And so here's what you do to change this mount, folks. So the first thing you're going to need to do is, you're going to need to take the mass airflow sensor connector loose. You're going to need to loosen the clamp for your bellows boot that goes to your airbox. There are 4 screws which I've already have removed. On this particular vehicle, they're 8 millimeter head sizes, so there's basically 1 in each corner. What you're going to do is, you're going to lift this airbox up and you're going to twist it out of the bellows like so, and just set it aside. I don't like turning these boxes upside down on the engine, because if debris falls into there and you go to put it back on, it could get sucked into the engine. So always keep that box facing down, keeps the dirt, dust, and debris out of there. I do want to point out this engine has a K&N air filter installed in it. You always want to check and make sure that you can see daylight through these filters. And it's kind of difficult to see with the camera, but you can actually see daylight through them. So this filter doesn't really need to be cleaned all that much. And if you do clean them, you have to oil them afterwards. That's the most important part. I do want you to look for this, because I see this a lot. I don't necessarily blame mechanics for it. It's more of an oversight. It's kind of hard to see. If you see this piece right here, this is a deformed piece of rubber from when somebody pushed the airbox into it, and basically it peeled this rubber back and they clamped it down that way. This will allow dust inside the engine, and if dust gets inside the engine, it will do what they call dust the motor, and it'll wear the piston rings out. So you want to make sure that this thing is flat and it's sealed all the way around when you put that airbox back together, okay? One of the things you can do for safety is to get yourself a rag and stick a rag in this hole. It's not gonna keep all the dust out, depending on the area and the environment you're in, but what it will do is keep you from accidentally dropping another bolt down in there. You just have to remember to remove that rag when you go to do your job. Okay, now you need to remove, and you don't have to remove this piece on the battery. There's a little clamp down here. I take it off just because it makes it easier for me to get the airbox out, the airbox base out of the vehicle. So what we're going to take off now is the airbox base. This is the bottom housing, and there's no bolts on this. One of the things you can do is you can get WD-40 with a little straw, okay? And inside these two forward holes, just spray a little bit of WD-40. See if I can get this one on camera for you, okay? And this will just help it come loose. Wiggle it around until that WD-40 gets down into that rubber grommet, and then just tug really firmly, okay? And just lift up. I'm lifting up underneath the box on the rear. Okay, and that's literally, I know it was hard to do the film on that, but that's literally how stubborn they are to get out. All they are that you're pulling on are these little tabs right here that go in and lock into the rubber. So they're just supposed to be a quick release tab. Okay, set that down out of the way. Okay, this is the mount that we're discussing, that we were just talking about. And if you notice, it is collapsed. Yes, sirree, Bob. See where this thing right here? This is the base. This is the transmission metal. There, it's completely, it's touching. It's actually sitting on it and resting. So this thing right here is going to be vibrating like crazy. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but the mount's actually ripped out all the way across. It's torn out. But the way this mount is designed, when the rubber fails, it won't allow the engine or transmission to fall out of the vehicle. That's the reason why this big piece of metal overlaps the frame. So, but it will sit on it, and that's what's causing our vibration. So to change this, what you're going to do is you're going to support the vehicle. I've got mine on a lift, and it's just high enough off the ground that the tire is about 3 inches, 4 inches off the ground. You're going to get it firmly and safely supported on a jack, or jack stands, I should say. And then you're going to get a floor jack with a 2x4. And I know that there's a bright light shining on it, but you're basically going to just put the jack underneath the pan with the 2x4. The 2x4 is there so you don't dent or scratch the pan. And you're just going to jack up on the floor jack until you see this stud come up just a hair. All you need to do is just lift the pressure off of this. Okay. At that point, you're going to get a 21 millimeter socket. You can do this by hand wrench. I choose to do it by impact. Okay, so now the transmission is safely and securely held up by the floor jack with the 2x4. You're going to take the nut off. That's what bolted it to the transmission. Now, on this vehicle, and your vehicle may differ, so you have to check the sizes. This one, the bolts that hold it to the frame are 15 millimeter. So I'm going to take these off. Okay, I'm going to set them on top of the battery for now. If you got a bad habit of knocking things into the fender and losing nuts and bolts, it's a good idea to use a magnet tray on this. Grab the mount and simply lift up. And now what you have is the top half of the transmission mount. And if we put the transmission mount under the light and you look at it really carefully with the camera here, which doesn't seem to want to focus right now, there it goes, you'll notice that the mount is split and disconnected on both sides. This is going to help you out. See this shiny spot right here? That was made by this part of the mount on the edge. When the mount failed, because of the weight of the engine and transmission, it allowed the assembly to shift about 1/4 of an inch, just enough that it was actually rubbing on this. So not only was the mount collapsed and the ears are basically sitting right on the frame, okay, but the bottom of it was rubbing also. And just for comparison, once again, before we put it in, this is how far off the frame those ears need to be. Okay, so this allows the entire transmission and engine to be supported by the rubber mount itself, which is what you need. Sorry you didn't actually get to see that, so I'll do it again with the camera facing it. Okay, and so at this point, you simply put your bolts, your nuts back on. Shouldn't say bolts, we use the proper terminology here. Put the nuts back on. Put the 21 millimeter head nut back on. It's actually not a 21 millimeter nut, that refers to the thread size. 21 millimeters is the size of the wrench. These are 15 millimeters. Okay. Give these things a nice cinching. Okay. And then we're going to switch over, and my air compressor just kicked on, so you'll have to listen to that for just a second. I think somebody on another video complained my dogs were barking in the background, and I think it was the air compressor because I don't have my dog in the shop when I shoot videos. Now, if you noticed carefully, you'll notice that the car moved when I tightened that down. The reason why is because now the mount is in a different location, and it actually sucked the transmission up off the jack just a little bit because it lifted it up. So now there's a lot less. Matter of fact, see, I can move my floor jack now because there's no weight on it. That's how low the transmission was hanging with the bad mount. Okay, I actually stopped the video for a moment because the air compressor was actually starting to get annoying and I felt like I was yelling to talk over it. So what I was getting at was, because the transmission lifted up when we tightened the bolt down, because now the mount is higher up on this end, it basically took weight off of the floor jack that was supporting the transmission, and I'm actually allowed to, I can just pull the jack out now. I didn't even have to release it and set it down. So that's how much play these mounts can get when they go bad. Now at this point right now, the video is pretty much done. My name is Ron, I'm with Mobile Fix Automotive, and once again, for the do-it-yourselfers, I'm just trying to give you guys a heads up. If you don't want to tackle this job yourself, or you don't have the tools, feel free to give me a call if you're in my local area. I will give you a quote to do it, and be happy to fix it for you. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and quickly videotape putting back the airbox, and then that'll be the end of it. So at this point, we're going to grab the base of the box and put it back in here. And the way that you're going to do this is you're just going to push down. You'll feel the little plungers lock in. And once you can't push it down anymore, you're done. Okay, and now the next step is to make sure that the air filter is safely installed in the vehicle. If you'll notice, I had the air filter where the dirty side was facing up. That's because that side does not flow into the engine. So if any debris, dust, or flies landed on it and I start the engine, they're all going to be on the side they're supposed to be on anyway, which is the box side. At this point, I'm not going to be able to videotape putting this back together because I'm going to need two hands, but I'm going to lubricate this. I'm going to put the box in on with this side first and then rotate it up so that this piece will actually straighten itself out, and put the battery cover back on, and then I will start the vehicle. Verify customer's complaint is gone, which I already know it has, and then we'll move on to the next video. So thanks for your time. If you like the video, please click on like by all means, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.